Hello everybody, it's your friendly digital technology librarian, Christy here. We've reached another Friday, so of course I have another Film Rec Friday ready for everybody out there. Now, we have finally reached May, and it happens to be one of those months that's kind of just chock full of awareness campaigns and heritage celebrations. And, I am hoping to sort of shine a little bit of a light onto some of those different themes and topics over the course of the next couple of weeks. Like I said, May is a really jam-packed month, and I'm really excited to share some of these recommendation lists that I have in the works for you. And this week, we are actually celebrating Jewish American Heritage Month, and we are doing that with a couple of films that highlight Jewish American life at two very, very different periods of time in this country. And they both happen to be films from a really fantastic director named Joan Micklin Silver, who really sort of made a name for herself, creating films that delved into different aspects of Jewish American life. And she even had her own production company, and she's just a really, really fascinating creator. And she made some incredible films, and I hope that you enjoy the two recommendations we are going to show off today. As always, these films are available to you entirely for free with the use of your Milan-Berlin library card, and these two films are available either through our CleveNet service on DVD and Blu-ray or via our streaming services, which today's would be on Canopy. Okay, so without any further ado, let's get to the recs. Okay, so my first recommendation for today comes via our Canopy streaming service, and that is 1975's Hester Street. Now, as mentioned before, both of today's films are from Joan Micklin Silver, and this is one of her earlier works. She put this together in something like 33 or 34 days via her own production company, Midwest Films. Midwest Films was quite critically acclaimed. The New York Times at one point labeled it as one of the best mom and pop shop production houses at that time at all. And this is one of those films that I had meant to watch for years and years and years, primarily because of its lead actress. And I just never got around to it, and I'm so glad that I did, because it's really fascinating. All of the different aspects of immigrant life, but immigrant Jewish life in particular, but it's just, it really kind of delves into a lot of the nitty-gritty of what life in the early 1900s would have been like, particularly for this faction of people. But it also manages to be a movie about everyone and difficulties that everyone experiences, whatever background they are coming from. And I think it takes a very special film to sort of do that, to allow you to sort of understand and grasp certain elements, even if your own experience might be quite removed, to be able to empathize. It really is an incredible film. So basic rundown, we are in the early 1900s, and we are dealing primarily with the day-to-day experiences of a Russian Jewish immigrant family living in New York City. The father of the family, Jake, whose name is escaping me now, Stephen Keats, moved to New York some years prior. He's pretty much fully assimilated. He's embraced a lot of the attitudes of the time, certainly dresses like like every other American in New York at the time, and is very much sort of, dandy isn't quite the right word, but definitely someone who feels that he's better than a lot of the other immigrants who are much newer to the country. He's managed to assimilate so much better, and the attitude that goes with that is designed to make you frustrated with him. He is also sort of vaguely seeing another woman who also has assimilated strongly into the culture at the time. So when his wife Gittel, played by Carol Kane, who is phenomenal in this, um, is finally able to make it over to the States with their son, he is already a man of two minds. He is, you know, responsibility and duty bound to care for this small family that he has, but he's also already quite enamored with this woman who's already assimilated into the society. The reminder of where he came from was frustrating and difficult for him to deal with, considering she has not yet had a chance to assimilate into this new culture and this new world. Um, so the opening scenes are more about Jake and his viewpoints and his experiences, but the film quickly shifts to his wife Gittel's experiences, and that's where things really start to resonate. She's so much of an outsider at first. She comes to this country believing that she's going to be happy, she's reunited with her husband, and now it's her whole little family. And suddenly he's a very different man from who she had married. The experience is so new, everything is so quick compared to her old life, and everyone's telling her, you have to change, you have to shift, and she no longer knows who she is. And watching that sort of struggle, but then also seeing how she does eventually manage to assimilate into culture, but also hold on to the things that make her her, that still call back to who she's always been. It's really very beautiful. And seeing her develop relationships with the people around her, develop friendships with other women who have come to the country before her, to see her interact with other immigrants, to see her become a New Yorker is really, really interesting. And Kane does such a good job of really embodying that sort of ongoing energy of, figuring things out. You can see her sort of trying to fit into this new role but not let go of who she's always been, and it's really quite beautiful. And this performance is so nuanced. It is absolutely no surprise that Carol Kane received a Oscar nod for this particular character. I mean, it's not even a character that has a huge amount of dialogue. So much of it is done physically, and not in big physical motions, but it's you just see the wheels turning, and it really is kind of a tour de force performance. I'm just so impressed, and I was just so engrossed in her performance the whole hour and a half. I was just really totally enamored with her performance, and I think you will be too. But yeah, as I was saying before, I think that this is one of those films that will speak to anyone. It doesn't matter if you come from a Jewish background, from any person of color kind of background. If you are just talking about moving to new places, I think that sense of, being an outsider will definitely be something that you can draw on. So even if the experience is not as nuanced, is not as extreme, obviously, you still understand like the tensions and the fear and the concerns that go through her mind on a daily basis as we're watching her experience. Um, and this film is not all about like struggle. It's also about finding new ways to approach and look at life and moving on, moving forward. And we really see Gettel do that. As I mentioned, her husband Jake is already essentially moved on with this new woman that he has found. This woman he thinks that he wants, that he thinks embodies everything that it means to be this New Yorker in a new country, in a different world from what he'd come from. And the way he gets to that point is so different. His journey is so different from Gettel's, but she also goes through her own journey. She finds her own new avenues to reaching happiness, and it's really fantastic. It really is like the juxtaposition of those two characters. I cannot say enough good things about this one. So if you're looking for kind of a interesting take on both the immigrant experience, romance, turn of the century life in general, make sure you check out Hester Street. Again, it's available on Canopy, and it is an absolute must watch. Okay, my other recommendation for this week is available on DVD via our CleveNet service, and that is 1988's Crossing Delancey. Now, as I mentioned before, both of these films that we're talking about today are from director Joan Micklin Silver, and this one is her take on a pretty standard mainstream romantic comedy, and it's one of those movies that I have always loved. It's one of my favorite rom-coms, period, from any theme we're talking about. It's a great rom-com. Anyway, at the time when she was making this film, she was coming up against quite a bit of blowback from the production because they were telling her this film was just too Jewish. I've read this in multiple interviews and several articles about this particular film, how that was, they didn't think she would even be able to finish the film. And that astonishes me because it's such a good movie. Interesting little anecdote, Steven Spielberg was actually the one who, really encouraged her and helped her get this project finished. And there are multiple reasons for that, one of which we'll talk about in just a second. But I'm so glad that she had support for it because this is such a great film. It's light and fluffy, but it does really talk about women at that time period and the location where she is in particular. It speaks to a lot of different themes and issues, and it really is a phenomenal movie. Anyway, so quick overview of the storyline. We are following a 30-something young woman named Isabel Grossman, Izzy for short. She's played phenomenally well by Amy Irving, who is just a joy on screen. She also happened to be married at the time to Steven Spielberg. And Izzy is, this woman who is sort of very much trying to embody everything a single, educated, independent, successful person should be, who happens to live in New York on the West Side. She was a bookstore clerk. She desperately wanted to be seen and known as a person who was part of that whole intelligentsia movement. And she was, she's definitely finding herself in that particular group of people. She likes being a mover and a shaker. She likes being someone you can look to as far as advice on all kinds of different topics can be. And I definitely think that was driving her, that her character is being driven by those desires. Again, very much a modern American woman, independent, intelligent, and she's trying to sort of find a way to coexist with that vision of herself and her grandmother's vision of what her life should be. So on the weekends and whenever she can, she goes to visit her grandmother, who's played by Rizal Bozic. And she absolutely clearly adores this woman, and the woman adores her. But she has very specific viewpoints on what should make Izzy's character happy. And one of those is very definitely marriage. For many reasons. I mean, and not all of them are totally invalid or anything. It's just the two characters are approaching what life is supposed to be from very, very different directions. So Izzy's grandmother ends up hiring a matchmaker to find Izzy a match. And when she does, Izzy's brought out to meet him, and it turns out to be the pickle seller down the street, played by Peter Reigart, who is absolutely wonderful in this role. It could be very much a caricature, but he's not. He's just a regular Joe, a nice guy. And the more you watch it, and the more you watch their interactions, the more you realize just how multi-layered his character really is. He seems pretty one-dimensional the second you meet him, much like Izzy's first impression of him is. Like, you feel the same way she does. She's definitely someone who kind of embodies the concept of like 80s yuppie, but not. And she's looking at this very, very different life. This man who is a seller of pickles, like he literally is surrounded by barrels of pickles. It's a different existence, and she's, for better or worse, her reaction is, how would I have any relationship with this person? We don't live in the same universe. Um, and the film goes on to sort of follow their interactions. You find out, so much more about his character, but you also find out about other people in Izzy's life. She's had other partners before, and, what kind of people they were and what she's looking for, and what he's looking for. So, you get to see this relationship develop, whether we're talking about approaching a romance or a friendship or just finding equal footing when thrust together by a random matchmaker. And it's really delightfully funny in a lot of places, but really warm and fuzzy in others. And anytime Izzy's grandmother is on screen, you're just absolutely engrossed with her character. Reisel does such an incredible job with this role, because she could again easily be a caricature of the typical Jewish grandmother, but she's not. She's delightful. She goes to self-defense classes, and she's just awesome. And she doesn't have any problems with Izzy being strong and independent, and the more the film unfolds, you see she just wants Izzy to be happy, and this is the way that she's seeing that happiness develop. And she, again, for better or worse, this is the road that she thinks that Izzy should go on. So if you're looking for a rom-com that takes you on an atypical journey, I really do recommend Crossing Delancey. Amy Irving and Peter Riegert have excellent chemistry. They're also just really phenomenal in their roles. Reisel Bozic does an incredible job as Bubby, Izzy's grandmother, and all of the secondary characters. I mean, you see many faces you recognize. David Hyde Pierce has a small role in this as well, if you happen to be a Frasier fan. It really is such a good slice of life from 1980s New York. I can't say enough good things about it. Again, if you're looking for a rom-com or a slice of life film, 100% recommend 1988's Crossing Delancey, available on DVD with our CleveNet service. Okay, so those were my 2 recommendations for today. If you have any recommendations on films that sort of delve into Jewish American life, they don't have to be by director Joan Micklin Silver, please comment with those below. Definitely always interested in movie recommendations. If you have any recommendations for themes that you'd like to see us cover in the future, also make sure that you comment with those. Definitely looking forward to any ideas on that front. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and close out this episode. As always, thank you so much for joining me, and hopefully I will see you next week. Bye.